It's man, it's machine, it's Ryan, it's Bradley. We're bringing you the goodness here on Wednesday night, February 19th. Ryan and I are going to jump into discussing these must draft running backs for the 2025 NFL season. Look, the Super Bowl just happened, and some of us degenerates have been in the best ball streets. We've been drafting. The dynasty leagues never sleep, but we're looking already at 2025 as lessons learned. And even before we get into like specific players, because these are like must draft running backs, we saw in 2025, Ryan, like the renaissance of the veteran running back carrying you to fantasy goodness. It was the Derrick Henry, it was Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Alvin Kamara, all these players who are either at the age apex or past the age apex, stayed healthy, and were able to carry many fantasy managers to championships, to the playoffs, make a lot of money. And so, the question that comes into our minds as we are entering 2025 is surely it can't happen again, right? Surely we're not going to see another move of these running backs, these veteran running backs, like the year 5, year 6, year 7, etc. Veteran running backs who have been consistent stalwarts of our lineups. It's got to be that there's someone got to replace them, right?
Yeah, I mean, my answer to this is twofold. First is something that I've always said is, the NFL's cyclical and you basically want to do what other teams aren't. And if you've noticed the last few years, the smartest teams in the league, the Eagles, the 49ers, the Ravens, have brought in veteran premium running backs because they're cheaper than dudes like Gabe Davis who don't make an impact. And now the league's been adjusting to they're playing more two high safety looks. And what do you do against light boxes? How do you get teams out of that? You run on them. So I think it's at least going to be a couple year thing. I'm not sure if two guys are if one guy's going to go over 2,000 yards rushing, another guy's going to have 1,900 yards rushing. I don't know if that's going to happen again, but I could see this being a thing for a few years until there's another adjustment. And I could see it. That said, Derrick Henry's getting up there. Saquon Barkley, had an unholy amount of touches this year. So I think taking some handcuffs in a zero running back situation could pay off too.
Yeah, one of the running back handcuffs that paid off for part of the year was Jordan Mason. And it was, of all of the running backs that busted in the first couple rounds, Christian McCaffrey was the biggest one. Jordan Mason also only lasted for a little bit. And then you had Isaac Orendo step up. Patrick Taylor didn't do much. But I think San Francisco still targeting like those running back groups is still the way to go, even if you're hesitant to draft a Christian McCaffrey, who's going at the 1-2 turn in some drafts right now. He's considered like a top 12 player, top 15 player, given the massive upside. But Debo doesn't return, you could see him being even more involved. But I think if the 49ers have him healthy, they'll just run the snot out of Christian McCaffrey in 2025. Is that how you will approach it?
Yeah, we talked about this recently. He's kind of the most important guy to get right, and this has got to be at least close to an all-in year, final stand year for the San Francisco 49ers. So yeah, I think it's an empty the chamber kind of situation as long as McCaffrey's healthy.
Well, Ryan and I are going to bring you a list of like 6 or 7 players each that from the running back position that we believe are must drafts. And many of these are veteran running backs. We are still working through our rookie running back chambers. We're working through those evaluations right now. There are 2 rookies that I want to bring to the forefront that I think are good values and players that are going to be important for you to be drafting and not undervaluing. But we'll start with some of the veterans. We'll throw them your way. The first one for me is Devon Achane. And Achane was running back 8 last year in top 5 weeks, rate of top 5 weeks. He was almost at 20% of his weeks were top 5 weeks. That's not bad. He was running back 12 in flex weeks, so a decent floor, an RB1 floor with a mid RB1 ceiling. and he was RB11 in best ball value rating. So best ball value rating, of course, takes into account the type of ceiling that a player has, their floor, and at a rate. So he contributes like 11 points to your goal of getting 150 per week. Like a winning team usually gets 150 points and half-point scoring. So he contributes about 11 per week on average. So pretty good. A couple notes about this Miami situation is they've released Raheem Mostert, and we'll talk more about, and maybe this will be your player that you can dive more deeply into. But I think that this is the release of Raheem Mostert is a fewfold. One, the confidence in Devon Achane as being the lead back. Two is just not needing an injury plagued player, give some fresh opportunities to younger players. And three, they like Jaylen Wright. But I think the ceiling can still be accessed even more than his RB8 and top 5 weeks and RB11. This was Devon Achane. He was the 4th best running back in terms of best ball value rating in 2023. So he's had 2 straight seasons of like top 12. He's a clear RB1. And if the offense gets a little bit better, like Tyreek Hill was not himself. We know that the injuries impacted the offense overall, spreading the field. Achane outplayed, out-targeted Jaylen Waddle. Like that, maybe you have a take about that too, Ryan, but it was kind of a bizarre Miami Dolphins evolution of offense. And regardless of how it evolved, Achane is still the centerpiece. So I want us to be confidently drafting Devon Achane in 2025.
Yeah, I expect I'll be around even on him. I'm not as in love with him as most people. Like, I actually don't think he's that good of a runner. Granted, the Dolphins don't have they have like a bottom 5 offensive line, so that's part of the thing. But he's basically a guy, I've compared him to Napoleon Kaufman, who's, I got gray in my beard, so unless you have some of that yourself, you probably have no idea who Napoleon Kaufman is. But he's a guy, you give him a lane, he can bust a big run. The 2 games he went over 100 yards rushing were late in the year, where he had a 50-yard carry, 61-yard carry. Otherwise, if you go through his game log all year, on the ground he's very, very reliant on home runs. So, and that's fine. That's not a problem. Most of his value came in the passing game, where I'm not surprised that he was an asset in that regard, but his volume, like you said, he was kind of the main vein. Him and Jonnu Smith were the main veins of the offense, which I could see that being scaled back a little bit, considering that they still have Tyreek Hill, and hoping that they keep him, and Jaylen Waddle. Like, Jaylen Waddle probably needs to ascend at some point. That said, one way to mitigate rough offensive line play is short passes to fast running backs. So I like him in that regard. He ran for 900 yards. I kind of see that being his sort of baseline on the ground, though.
Yeah, Achane is, he's probably a pretty safe floor play. I like the pass catching, as you mentioned. Do you think that Miami is going to be able to improve that offensive line significantly enough to move away from that type of offensive scheme?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I would expect that they're probably going to try to take a lineman in the first round, but yeah, that's a question mark. And still, though, even with that, I think you'd want to scheme up more to Jaylen Waddle at minimum. Let's say Tyreek Hill moves on, or he's getting up there in years, and it wasn't just, his decline last year wasn't just injury related. I would think they're going to have to do more with Waddle at some point. So, again, 87 targets is a lot. 290 opportunities, all in all, is a lot. I could see that being a little bit lower than that.
Yeah, for reference, Jaylen Waddle. So I mentioned that Devon Achane was like a 10.8 best ball value rating in 2024. Jaylen Waddle, a 3.4. 3.4. It was just disaster zone in terms of what Waddle was bringing to you for fantasy. All right, Ryan, hit us with your must draft running back, your number 1 must draft running back in 2025.
Well, I say my number one guys will come later on in the draft. But as far as like guys that I think at least have a path to being a top 5 performer, I'm a buy the dip guy. I plan to buy the dip on Breece Hall. I say it with a little bit of trepidation, because let's say they bring in Justin Fields, I'm going to be a little less enthusiastic about it, because
you saw that report.
His passing game role will go down. But We've already seen him perform at a premium in the past, his rookie season. Last year was just a debacle all around. So I'm kind of throwing it out for the most part. New coaching staff, better coaching staff, frankly, even though Glenn's never been head coach. I never really understood the Robert Salah hire personally. Just, a bet on talent, a bet on Devontae Adams no longer being there. Basically, that offense running through Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. So I'm where he's going currently. I'm going to be a buyer. I'm going to be a buyer.
Yeah, Breece Hall is going around RB11 right now. The reality is in his first 2 seasons, Breece Hall was a major home run hitter, and that was reflective in his best ball value rating, a 10.4 and 10.5 during his first 2 seasons. Drops down to an 8.55 last year. It was the short passes. It was almost Devon Achane light. Like we think that he kind of lost a step a little bit. He looked a little bit slower on film, but that may have also just been the product of an offense that overall was one of the slowest. Like Aaron Rodgers runs one of the slowest offenses in the NFL. He takes all of his time. He reads the defense and waits until the very last minute to do it. So anything has to be faster, right, Ryan?
Anything, yeah. I mean, offensive line play, like going into the year with a terrible offensive coordinator, firing him for someone who's maybe better, but not certainly better. It's just, that the stability of the whole situation, apart from maybe quarterback, it's going to be better for the Jets this year.
It better be better for the Jets. It couldn't be much worse. Goodness. Well, this is going to come as no surprise. And as someone who lives 25 minutes outside the city of Detroit, Jahmyr Gibbs, he was the RB3 last year in top 5 weeks. He was the number 1 overall player. Jahmyr Gibbs, the number 1 overall player in terms of rate of weeks that he contributed at least as a flex play. Whoa. Like that is not only is the consistency there of being always a floor play, but the ceiling, the massive ceiling for Jahmyr Gibbs is one that we can't ignore. And that was even with David Montgomery still being a player that was offering a very solid floor as well. David Montgomery in his limited games was still the RB6 in rate of flex weeks. So both had very high floors, but the high ceiling goes to Jahmyr Gibbs. And as we look at what's happened over the last couple seasons, like David Montgomery misses a couple games with injuries, but he's not getting any younger. He's on the wrong side of the age cliff. Jahmyr Gibbs, this is the year to strike, where we've seen a little bit of breakdown for Montgomery. He had some knee issues that kept him out for a significant amount of time. Those can easily rear back. So Jahmyr Gibbs is a massive buy. He's the RB3 in the ADP behind Barkley this year. So give me as much Jahmyr Gibbs as like middle of the first round as I can get.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't very happy. We don't really tell each other our stances before we go on here, but we list these guys so we don't have the same guy. I was not very happy that Gibbs was on Brad's list because I've said that I think Gibbs is the best running back in the league, like from a talent perspective. And like you said, David Montgomery's, he's aging. The offensive line's premium. I think in space, he's the best back in the league, which is what I value the most. He's electric. And the big one is for me, in terms, like if you're a linebacker covering a running back in the NFL right now, I think he's easily the scariest guy. He's the scariest assignment. So he should have, high passing volume with Jared Goff again. If he finished running back number 1 overall, wouldn't surprise me. I hope he goes as late as possible so I can be way overweight on him.
That would be fun. That would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's one of those. He's just so strong. He's big. He's fast. He can move in the space. As you mentioned, the offensive line, I think, is still going to be good. There are questions about the offensive coordinator, but Dan Campbell he knows what he's got in his guys. With Ben Johnson moving on to Chicago and even some of the other coordinators moving on as well. Randall L., the wide receivers coach, moves on. So some of the offensive coaches in that room are going to be different. but I think that Dan Campbell picks his guys. Like, that's a culture, that's a locker room, that is of what they want to accomplish. And Jahmyr Gibbs is bought in as like one of the Sonic and Knuckles. They're making it happen for the Lions. So Jahmyr Gibbs, he's a player that we need to just be putting our blindfolds on and just clicking, like not worrying about it. Because the best case scenario is he's RB1. Worst case scenario, he's RB5.
Yeah.
Like, from a fantasy perspective,
barring like a catastrophic injury. Yeah.
All right, Ryan, hit us with another must draft running back.
So, I especially at this early point in the offseason, I want to bet on guys that are probably going to see a bigger opportunity next year. So I'm a buyer on Jaylen Warren right now. Najee Harris looks like he's going to spend his first season outside of Pittsburgh. I've never loved Warren as much as like consensus has as a player, but he's faster than Harris. That's a run-centric offense. That's going to continue to be a run-centric offense, regardless of which quarterback they bring in and /keep. So I like the upside. He's going at least, I'd say, a round later than he should be. So I'm definitely a buyer now for this foreseeable future.
Yeah, what do you make of Jaylen Warren last year? Because in my opinion, he underperformed, like significantly underperformed. He was electric in previous seasons, but in like smaller samples.
Yeah.
Do you think that he's going to be able to hold? Let's assume Najee Harris moves on. I don't know if Jaylen Warren's going to be like the guy, but is he good enough to hold on to a lead role or a bigger role if they bring in a Najee light, something like that, like a bruiser?
Yeah. No, it's a good question. It's just about every backfield in the league is a committee outside of like 3 or 4, but I think what I'd compare him to, and this is kind of how I've seen it the whole time, is Dallas Cowboys version Tony Pollard, where he will have moments where he sees the primary workload, but yeah, there's going to be someone mixing in. It's just, there's actually someone behind him that I like more, but which we'll get to soon. But I'm interested in the upside, especially because Arthur Smith is so run-centric, and they don't really have a ready replacement on the roster unless they bring back Harris.
Okay, question for you. We're gonna like take a detour here. There was a report that came out earlier this week or end of last week that Russell Wilson and Arthur Smith got into a philosophical, they had philosophical differences in how to run the offense, is stemming from the Cincinnati Bengals win where he threw for over 400 yards, threw for multiple touchdowns. And Arthur Smith was really upset about that because that's not how he wanted to win the game. And that's what's driving Russ to probably not return to Pittsburgh. And also what has led to like George Pickens not doing very well in the second half of the season. Do you buy or sell that narrative for coming out of Pittsburgh?
It's interesting. I could definitely see a guy like Russell Wilson clashing with Arthur Smith, though. That makes all the sense in the world. You have Russell Wilson, just I don't know what the right word is, but he's not exactly a Mr. Steeler, if that makes sense. And Arthur Smith's a bit of an old school guy, play calling wise, leans on the run, where I think for Warren, what would be best for him is if Aaron Rodgers went there. And that would make sense for the Steelers, a 1-year bridge quarterback. They're a competitive team. The outlet passes that Rodgers throws fits right into what Warren does well. So I actually kind of hope Wilson leaves and Rodgers stays on teams that I have Warren.
Like Aaron Jones light.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah.
Trying to get some comps here for the people. If you like the content and find it helpful, guys, smash the subscribe button on YouTube. Go to PlayerProfiler Now. We're streaming there. We're also streaming on the Profiler Now Twitter channel, the X Machine. Check that out. And you know what else you should check out is the Fast Draft Origins. Go to fastdraft.app and draft today.
Rookie. It's all about rookie talk in fantasy football right now. So why not go use all that knowledge to do something other than a mock draft? Chris Jimino won $8,000 with just 2 teams last year, and each draft took 5 minutes. That's pretty good ROI. You can start doing rookie drafts for money today on Fast Draft. The Origins tournament is live. It is the place to go and monetize your knowledge of rookies, and use your favorite Player Profiler host promo code for a $25 deposit match. Now let's go start drafting faster.
That's right. Draft faster on fastdraft.app. You can download it and draft where accessible. Ryan, we may not be able to draft this player in the Origins drafts, but it feels like it's been since the dinosaur age, since Alvin Kamara himself was a rookie. And his ADP, he's RB 17 right now, 56th overall. And last year, looking at what Alvin Kamara did from like a rate of top 5 weeks, he was RB 11. RB 11. He was the 11th best running back in terms of rate of elite. Oh, yeah. And he still like is not very effective in the running game. Like his best days are behind him, but the volume is there. And the flex rate, the floor is so high. We talked about Jahmyr Gibbs, like 86% of the time. Alvin Kamara, 72% of the time was at least a flex play for you last year. 72% of the time. But for like to give people, to give the viewers a sense of that, like J.K. Dobbins, who was a breakout player last year, only was a flex play 49% of the time. Breece Hall, 46% of the time, right? It's significantly different in what they're contributing to your teams, especially if right now you're drafting the best ball streets. So you want players who will give you floor and have access to ceilings. And that's what Alvin Kamara is going to continue to do. Like he was one of the players that Kellen Moore came out during his press conference and said, we want to get Alvin Kamara the ball. Like the offense is going to run through him. He said that Derek Carr is going to be a professional quarterback and is a starting NFL quarterback, but that wasn't a resounding, glimmer of support. That's not the coach speak you want to hear from the new coach. What you do want to hear is exactly what was said about Alvin Kamara. He's the guy. So we're gonna see Alvin Kamara getting the ball, and he's a great value at RB 17. You can just load up on the wide receivers and draft Alvin Kamara in like a zero RB, hero RB type of build. I'm here for it, Ryan, and I don't care. We're just gonna ride Alvin Kamara into the ground.
Yeah, I have 2 betting parallels for this. The first one, I've used this a number of times. I learned this lesson when I was a very young lad. I kept betting on other teams or picking other teams with my father to win the National League East during the Chipper Jones Braves era. And, I learned bury them when they're dead. This guy, I'm going to bury Alvin Kamara when he's dead. That's my plan. Once he's actually had a dip is when I'll say, okay, he's no longer Alvin Kamara. Until that happens, I'm going to buy him when I can get him at a discount. And the second one is I have this terrible streak going where every year I bet on one coach to be the first coach fired. And every year for, I think it's 6 years now, that coach has been the second coach fired. I was expecting a disaster with the Saints last year. I thought Dennis Allen was going to get fired before Thanksgiving. The Jets were more of a train wreck. So, again, he was not the winner of that award, but Kamara did what he did last year despite an absolute catastrophe of a football operation, especially in the second half where they didn't have an NFL quarterback when Carr was hurt. So I'm a buyer myself. I love that call.
Kamara had his highest yards per carry since 2020. He had the most rushing yards of his NFL career, and he got back to 68 receptions. He's not going anywhere. The coach speak is there. The production is still there. He was RB5 in fantasy points per game in full PPR last year. We're not moving away from Alvin Kamara. Draft him. There's no reason to be afraid. Do not be afraid.
Do not be afraid. Yeah, no, I mean, listen, if you're going to lose on like a fifth round or so running back, it's fine losing on Alvin Kamara. It's fine. It's a good decision.
All right, Ryan, hit us with our next running back.
So I hate saying this out loud, but Najee Harris is going way too late right now. And,
Oh.
and here's how I see this. I don't think I would imagine he's not coming back to Pittsburgh, but if he goes to Denver, I love it. If he goes to Dallas, I like it. If he becomes Ben Johnson's new David Montgomery in Chicago, I think that's almost the best case scenario. I think that would actually be genuinely exciting. And depending on how much he wants, that's probably what I would do if I were him. It would be Denver or Chicago that I'm looking at. And I'm sure there's other teams on the list too, like the Vikings. If they don't bring Aaron Jones back, maybe they bring in Najee Harris. There's all sorts of upside for a guy who's not exactly, Mr. Sexy here. Like he's not going to be running back one overall. He's basically drawing dead at that. But you're getting him. Where is he going? Like I think the last I looked, he was going
He was like RB 30 something.
Yeah, he was like going like pick 110. Like yeah, I'm gonna roll the dice on him early. Yeah, he's going 110.9 on underdog right now. I'm going to roll the dice on him early. I expect he's going to pay off pretty well at that point.
Yeah, I like the landing spot. I want to wait on the landing spot for Najee Harris. Because at RB 33 or 36 or wherever he is, that was about what he did last year in terms of production. He was RB 30 in best ball value rating. It was RB 33 in flex rate. Like it was fine. Like it was okay. But I would need a premium landing spot like Chicago, and I'd be willing to pay up. I would be willing to pay whatever the increase is if we get a good landing spot. But at that point, maybe this is just me hating on Najee Harris. Maybe this is
listen. That's fair. That's fair.
This is like my Felix Castro. I'm always jealous of him. He won $1 million a couple years ago, and all he did was he drafted like 70%, 80% Najee Harris as like his dagger strategy of like, I'm going to draft every combination of Najee Harris plus, et cetera, and ended up winning on Najee Harris. I'm just jealous, and that, shout out to you, Felix, but never Najee, right?
That's fair. That's a solid stance, especially at this point. But, yeah,
the machine says no, the man says yes.
Yeah, I'll roll the dice that he goes to the Bears or the Broncos. I'm willing to do that.
The Broncos, interesting. I like that you picked that landing spot because I agree with you that is a premium landing spot, number one. And number two is it's an indictment of the Jags that exist in the running back room for the Broncos. Like, I wish Audric Estime showed me a little bit more. Javonte Williams, we know what he is. Yeah, Jaleel McLaughlin took a major step back, and Tyler Beatty is coming back from like a major injury. So all of those players are replaceable. I am very biased with the Notre Dame, paraphernalia that's in the background. Go Irish. So Audric Estime is my guy, but I agree with you. If someone in the Sean Payton offense has any bit of juice and gets the pass catching touches out of the backfield, like we could be looking at top 5 running back, top 7 running back. Easy.
Yeah, I mean, when Peyton was in New Orleans, Mark Ingram played a significant role in his offense. They're kind of doppelgangers. So that's how I see it. I could see Denver going after Harris.
Interesting. Love it. All right, Ryan. I think this player's also landing spot dependent because he was on a 1-year deal. The Chargers may or may not bring him back. It's J.K. Dobbins. But if the Chargers do not bring Dobbins back, there's a massive void for the Chargers in terms of running back because Gus Edwards, he's now a 0. Kimani Vidal also didn't do anything in year 1. Like a player that we had hoped, good landing spot, etc., might take this next step. I think J.K. Dobbins showed what he was, and what he will be pretty much the rest of his career if he's given opportunities, which is a back to mid running back 2 the rest of the way. But he's a good value right now. And I'd rather, take a player who has shown us who he is, been involved a little bit in the passing game. I think more with the Chargers than what he was with Baltimore. He wasn't very involved in the passing game for the Ravens, but was utilized by Herbert there were games where there were 3, 4, 5 receptions for J.K. Dobbins. So I like Dobbins reclaiming his career, reclaiming his identity. And, if he stays with the Chargers, great. That's a wheels up situation. But he could end up like in Chicago, as you mentioned, and being like the between the tackles type of guy. And I think there are some other locations, some other places where a player like that, where you need a grinder between the tackles, a guy who can take hits. I think J.K. Dobbins is that guy.
Yeah, it actually, to add to Najee Harris, like I would be ecstatic if he went to the Chargers and they didn't let Dobbins go. That would be a wonderful spot. I'm with you. Again, I'm willing to roll the dice a little bit that they're going to bring back a veteran since they don't have anyone that's even close to a difference maker on their roster right now. That they have a veteran in a wonderful position, that they bring him back on the cheap again. And I'm willing to bet at 102.3 ADP currently to see if that happens. And if he goes someone else and he dips around or so, like it is what it is, I'm always an upside better. The one thing I'll say too about the Chargers situation is whoever else they bring in that isn't Gus Edwards, if they bring in Dobbins and pair him with say like a third round pick, I want that guy too. Don't care who he is. I'm just
Absolutely.
That's a situation that I 100% want to bet on.
All right. Well, what if J.K. Dobbins lands on the Patriots? Would that upset you with your next pick here, Ryan?
Oh yeah. I've never been a huge Rhamondre Stevenson guy, but again, we're looking for paths to someone taking a leap. I don't think he's a great player, but I do think the offense is going to be notably better next year. The offensive line's likely going to be better coach. Drake May showed that he can play, and he still had some pretty significant usage, 207 carries, 41 targets over 15 games. I could see both of those numbers going up. Rhamondre Stevenson in that same range of Najee Harris, J.K. Dobbins, guys like Zach Charbonnet. He's not going to be a guy he's drawn dead at running back 1 overall. He's not going to hit there, but he could be a solid RB2 most weeks for most of the season. I like that little cluster of players, especially on 0 running back teams. I'm going to try to bet on the Patriots offense and then from a number of angles. So I imagine I'll have more Rhamondre Stevenson this year than I ever have before.
Yeah, Rhamondre last year, RB22 in best ball value rating, and Rhamondre was, let me pull it up, RB26 in rate of flex weeks. He had no top 5 weeks, but as you mentioned, the offense was very bad. So I think my video froze, Ryan.
It appears that way, pal. I'm glad
right.
It's not mine.
We will take a break and be right back.
Right. I can keep talking, that's for sure.
Hey, what if I told you there was a Dynasty app where you could get player lifetime values, evaluate trades, including draft picks out to 2028, compare the advanced metrics of 2 players, look up the sentiment, buy, sell, hold on players? Well, there is a mobile app that has all of that and more called the Dynasty Dominator, and it's $5 in the App Store on Google Play. This is my gift to you, the most affordable Dynasty League domination app available today. And if you already have it, the 2025 class is ready to download. Let's go.
You've returned.
That's right. Let's go. I fixed it. Look at that. Look at that. We didn't even need a producer. Technical issues come up, and Bradley comes up. I'm sorry. We were finishing Rhamondre Stevenson. So I agree with you. The Patriots offense should be better. He looks like the guy. His agility is very strong. He's pass catching capability. Like those are the types of things that you want out of your running backs. But he's never been like great.
Right.
And so he's probably ceiling RB20 right now is my guess. Like that's probably where we're looking at, like over the last couple of years. Rhamondre, a 7.86 best ball value rating, 5.4 in 2023 and 5.99 in 2024. So just a little bump up, but he was a player that, everyone was hyped up in 20 going into the 2023 season, oh, he's going to be like the RB1 overall, and just the talent wasn't there and the offense wasn't there, and like it was an easy fade, Ryan. Sometimes it is that easy, but he can be a very good value. I agree with you on zero RB teams where you take a Rhamondre, you take a few others that fit in that mold, like a J.K. Dobbins and Alvin Kamara, and then you take some rookies, based on their landing spot. So I think he can very much fit into that spot.
Yeah, 100% agree. That's my plan. He's, RB2 on a zero running back or hero running back team where you're taking someone that has, difference-making breakout potential on the back end of the draft.
Well, Ryan, I'll give a rookie. We're finally going to get into the rookies, as I promised. There are two rookies that I'm interested in sharing with you. One is Cam Skattebo. He opted out of the Senior Bowl to focus on the combine and the NFL draft. Why do players opt out of things, especially this early? It's usually because someone tells them you don't need to do this.
Yeah.
Why?
You can only hurt your financial prospects. It's generally the advice that comes with that. Yep.
Right. And so like, you don't need to do this. You've got it in a lockdown. Mock Draft Database has Cam Skattebo at a third round mock. Like, he's going to get day 2 draft capital, and that didn't really move at all when he opted out of the Senior Bowl. So that's something to keep in mind. Lance Zierlein 6.16 grade on him is respectable, right? It's not great, but it's ahead of like an Ollie Gordon. 6.16 for reference is a good backup with the potential to develop into a starter. That's his scouting report. That's Lance Zierlein's. 17 rushing touchdowns last year, a 92.6 PFF rush grade, 1,400 rush yards, 35 receptions. Cam Skattebo is a good value play that we want to be considering in the underdog streets. Like, he's definitely one of those types of players that could get into if a veteran falls off, he's a handcuff, especially in year 1. So we want to be in on these types of players that there's potential there. There's college production. There's the touchdowns. And we're already getting early indicators by the projected draft capital and by him opting out of the Senior Bowl that these are indicators, and we want to take those seriously here, because that's the information that we have.
Yeah, I mean, he was a super producer in college. Like, his last year with Arizona is just, that's what you're looking for. Amon Bradshaw went towards the end of the draft, and he went to, I think it was San Diego State. And I remember his numbers were just like, this guy's like small school Marshall Faulk, and this dude put up Marshall Faulk level production. He's not Marshall Faulk, to be clear, but like, if he goes to Chip Kelly's Raiders team and they don't bring in a meaningful veteran, that's fascinating,
Yeah.
And if you're getting him at a discount now, like, you're celebrating come like May, if he's like on top of the depth chart for the Raiders and they have like a Gus Edwards type guy with him. So I bet an upside. I'm interested in it. I like that too.
RB 37, 118th overall, so end of round 10. That's not, you're not losing a lot of skin drafting a Cam Skattebo. So let's get Cam on our teams here. All right, Ryan, his with another one.
So this guy, especially if you played DFS at all last year, Travis Etienne had just such a bizarre season. I thought Tank Biggs, I faded Tank Bigsby his rookie year. I was overweight on him last year because I thought he would do more, but like, there were games where Travis Etienne had like 6 touches, on a regular basis. Now, here's the thing that I like about this. Former first round pick. I don't think he's a great player, but he still has like, he's not like a Saquon Barkley speedster, but like, he has above average speed for the position. He's in a contract year, which I love. Whatever anyone says, money's a motivator. And they have a new coaching staff with a much better offensive mind. So, good quarterback, solid offensive line. We could see his role maybe being different this year. So, again, he's in that same cluster of guys where I kind of like all of them a little bit, because I think their upside is maybe next year they're going in the 5th round, maybe even in the 4th round in the best case scenario. And Etienne's on that list. So, I'm going to take some shares of him now.
Yeah, I love the I love that call. Travis Etienne bounce back season, just turned 26, so slightly moving away from the age apex, but not in the concerning way. Ryan, you want to play a little player profiler trivia?
Sure.
Yeah, we do this occasionally. Who is the best comparable player to Travis Etienne on Player Profiler? If you go to Travis Etienne's playerprofiler.com player page, who is the best comparable player to Travis Etienne?
I'm going to say James Cook.
That is a good profile. I think a little heavier than Cook. Maybe I have my weights. Maybe I have my.
Probably is. I'm just thinking play style because, like, when I think of Etienne, I think of more of a guy who's just like a straight line speedster. So, like, I remember, we talk about this kind of stuff all the time. When they drafted him, I hated it. The only thing I liked about it, even mildly, was like, all right, it's Lawrence's college teammate, but I hated it. It's just like, listen, you need to give this guy more than a running back who can run fast in straight line. We can find those guys later in the draft, but
thanks
you gave you gave me a Giovanni Bernard comp once to one of these guys, so I can't wait to hear what this one is.
DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, that's fair. I think Swift's a little bit better laterally than Etienne, but I dig that. I like that.
Yeah. Sometimes it's fun to just go through if you're not familiar with Player Profiler, you go to each of the pages. There's a player best comparable player, and you can actually click on the best comparable player, and it'll take you to their page. And so, like, you can click on DeAndre Swift, and you can find that his best comparable player is Maurice Jones-Drew, which is hilarious. And then you click on Maurice Jones-Drew, and then it goes to best comparable player is Ray Rice. And then you can go to Ray Rice, and then it cycles you back to Maurice Jones-Drew. So sometimes it does cycle out, but it's a fun little game to do occasionally, Ryan.
No, I mean, honestly, I actually think the profiles of these guys is one of the best things on the site too. It's very informative, and I personally love player comps. I think it's a great way to communicate what you expect of someone. So I love this stuff. And that cluster, Maurice Jones-Drew, I don't know if I'd compare him to anyone. That dude's thighs were like Saquon Barkley size, and he was like 5'7". But Ray Rice, though, is like, we're not going to go with the off-field stuff. But Ray Rice, DeAndre Swift, like, I see some parallels there for sure.
There you go. Yeah. Ryan, you also got upset at me for this player take, and it's Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker, he crushed, but I'm less concerned about like last year, though last year existed because it was a whole new offensive coordinator situation. But Kenneth Walker, he was not able to stay healthy for part of the season, and that's what kind of led to his demise in terms of like a perception of fantasy. But Walker last year, RB14 in best ball value rating. He was the RB13 in rate of top 5 weeks. But the reason why I like him so much is because Zach Charbonnet was RB16 in rate of top 5 weeks. Like when Kenneth Walker was on the field, it was Kenneth Walker's show. It was not this was a Zach Charbonnet week or this was a Kenneth Walker week. It's clearly that Kenneth Walker's the lead back. And when the Seattle Seahawks got their new offensive coordinator, he came out and said, Kenneth Walker's centerpiece of this offense. Like, we're going to get him the ball in space. We're going to get it. And yes, Kenneth Walker's had his, since he was drafted, the question was, can he catch the ball? And I think this new system, this new offensive coordinator is going to look at getting Kenneth Walker the ball, both between the tackles and in space. And that's what we want. We want the volume. He's proven that he's a home run hitter. He gets the touchdowns. I think this offense is going to be pretty good with Kenneth Walker still there. And his value on Underdog is still very excellent. Looking at where he is, RB19. He's even after Alvin Kamara. 58th overall. You can just draft whoever you want. You can get an elite quarterback. You can get 2 wide receivers, and then you can maybe you want to take a tight end, an elite tight end like a Kittle or something like a Bowers. And then you get Kamara and Kenneth Walker. Like that is the pathway for success here in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, Walker's on the short list of guys who could maybe at least flirt with leading the league in rushing. And, I'm not a huge news guy. That's your arena. I saw that they're talking about throwing him the ball more. So that's something that intrigues me. That's why I was upset about him being on your list, because he was when you floated this idea. I was like, all right, I'm gonna have Gibbs, I'm gonna have Kenneth Walker, and then I saw I was like, well, Bradley's good at what he does, so this makes sense. And the other thing too is like Seattle, as long as they keep Geno Smith, they're gonna be a stuck in the middle competitive team. Like they're gonna be in games. They don't have a good enough passing attack to just air it out every week. So I like the upside. We'll see what Charbonnet's role is, but again, upside, like you said too, you can take 3 premium players and then get Kamara and Walker, and like those are 2 guys that could be top 10 running backs conceivably. So I'm with you on this one all the way.
And you dropped a little nugget in there, Ryan. Geno Smith is expected to return to the Seattle Seahawks. Like there were some offseason questions about, is he going to return? The expectation is Geno is on this team. This was a very different press conference regarding the quarterback. Like if you were to side by side compare Derek Carr, Geno Smith, he got the endorsement. Derek Carr, not so much.
It's fair.
All right, Ryan, hit us with your second to last running back for the night.
I said this earlier in the year. Trey Benson, I forget which game it is now. He had 5 carries in a game or so. One game this week, and this season, I was just looking. I was like, if James Conner were to go down, I now see how he could at least get 90% of his production. He didn't see a lot of opportunity. He didn't do anything tremendous with it, but smart runner, similar stylistically to James Conner. And I love James Conner, but he played 16 games last year. Like what are we looking at here? He's going to turn 30 in May. So I want shares to bet against that on a team that should be still creeping in the right direction, creeping up a little bit. So I like Trey Benson. I'm a big time guy where I fade a lot of rookies. Only like 2 or 3 rookies really make an impact every year. I don't like buying the premium, but I like buying the dip in their second year when I like them. So that's where I'm at with Benson. I could see Benson being a potential league winner if James Conner misses considerable time.
Yeah, Benson, he ran a 4.3940 at 216 pounds. Like his speed score, 98th percentile. He's got speed on speed. He has the draft capital, early 3rd round from last year. You talk about buying the dip. Like this is where you buy Trey Benson. You buy Blake Corum. You buy these day 2 running backs that didn't hit in year 1. This is the Tank Bigsby corollary, right?
Yep.
This is the Tank Bigsby corollary. I love the speed. The vision is questionable sometimes. Like, can he hit the hole? Does he know where the hole is? But if he hits it, that's a home run. So that was one of the pieces of scouting that, I'm not a big film bro, Ryan. Sorry. Like I don't watch every game.
It's probably better for the amount of time you spend on stuff for sure.
Look, this to like taking aside, like the life of Bradley in terms of like fantasy, I very rarely can sit down and do like a 45-minute draft, an hour draft. That's why I need to do the slow drafts. Like I'm in the slow draft streets on Underdog and on other places. I just can't make the major commitments with all the kids and the job I have and those types of things. So, the reality is I can't watch the film. I barely get Red Zone on Sundays. I actually usually get from 1 o'clock Eastern until 3:30, 4 o'clock is usually the window where I can watch the majority of the games. And then if the Packers play at 4 o'clock, then I'll watch them. But that's like my Sunday routine, Ryan. Like, I don't know.
Well, while we're on this subject, the only thing more disgusting than your slow draft stuff is the Alan Lazard jersey you have behind you that I have not noticed all year if it's been there. That, my friend, blew my mind. You're probably the only person in the country not named Lazard.
Let's move it for the people. The people can see the Alan Lazard jersey here.
how did that happen? Like of all the Packers there's ever been, like
it's
first of all,
signed too. Do you see that for the
okay,
people,
that actually makes me feel much better about
there
it.
is
that
a
it's
it is a signed. Well,
If-
you can
if
see
it's
it's a signed
signed,
Robert Tonyan, signed
that's
Alan
fine.
Lazard, signed AJ Brown.
That's a good one.
Let me pull it over here. We're going to the studio. Bakhtiari is signed.
See that one's a very good one.
Oh, it's fantastic.
That's a connoisseur's jersey. It being signed makes me feel much better about it. So it's not in the same category as you doing slow drafts primarily.
Do you know why Bakhtiari was asked why his number was 69, and it's because Aaron Rodgers, the longest he can throw is somewhere between 68 and 70 yards.
Okay, I like that. I would say it's also because that dude slugged 2 beers in the matter of like 5 seconds, and every team needs a number 69. It made sense that he was that guy. So,
okay,
I like that one though. That one,
Ryan. Here's you rag on Alan Lazard, but Lazard. Here, I'm gonna be a Lazard truther for a second, because even last year, Alan Lazard. I'm pulling up the data, Ryan. This is dangerous. You insulted the Alan Lazard. He had a higher rate of top 5 weeks than DK Metcalf, than Josh Downs, than George Pickens, than Stephon Diggs, than AJ Brown, than Chris Olave, than Deebo Samuel, than Brandon Ayuk, than Michael Pittman. Like, these are premium players. These are premium players. Higher rate of top 5 weeks. That's Alan Lazard.
I have an immediate rebuttal. Aaron Rodgers has made people like Adam Gase money. He's made a lot of people a lot of money. I might be wrong about that. I think that's Peyton Manning, Adam Gase. But Aaron Rodgers made a lot of people a lot of money. I can't wait to have this conversation after this year when Aaron Rodgers is not Alan Lazard's quarterback. Unless, if Rodgers goes to Pittsburgh, maybe Lazard joins him and the streak continues. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens this year with that Rodgers.
Would be the wide receiver 2 on that team.
On Pittsburgh, he would. Yeah, that's why I retreated, because if Rodgers goes to Pittsburgh, he might actually have a better year next year as a Steeler. So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, we'll see what happens once Rodgers is no longer his quarterback.
All right, we're gonna round it out with 2 more running backs, and then we'll call it a night. Bhayshul Tuten, Virginia Tech running back. He's a projected 5th round running, so it is day 3, but he is going undrafted. He's going undrafted, Ryan, in many of the best ball streets, or he's like a last round selection. I want to put him on your radar. He's 5'11", 209. He was 4th in the class in yards yards after contact per attempt, 4th in PFF's elusiveness rating. He had an 80.7 PFF rush grade, and Lance Zierlein has him as the RB6 in the class at a 6.26 grade. At least a backup with the possibility of being a starter. Like, that's what the grade indicates. And you don't hear about this guy, Bhayshul Tuten, out of Virginia Tech. I want you to put him on the radar, get it out there. Is he going to be my Dwayne McBride 2.0? Maybe Tutton's going to be my Dwayne McBride 2.0, no matter what. But look, this is a player that we want to be higher on than what the market is, because of what some of the scouts are telling us and what production he put up last year. Draft some Bhayshul Tuten.
So for me, very quick, I have a gradual process with watching film on prospects. I probably couldn't even get any YouTube videos on this guy at this point. But this is, if you're drafting early, this is the exact kind of guy you want to buy right now, because you're getting him for free. And if he goes to the right spot, or he has a big combine, he's going to be going 5+ rounds earlier. So, you put him on my radar. I'll definitely watch him as soon as I can.
Yeah. So just for kicks and giggles, like Tuten on the underdog streets, his ADP is 235. He's going RB 73. Look, he's a 0 that could be something. That's what you want to be taking, like rotating these types of players through very late. You just never know if the landing spot is going to be good. take your shots. Take your shot in Tuten. All right, Ryan, hit us with your last running back.
So, the Dolphins, any like Shanahan running scheme, like all of his disciples, they all pretty much do well, even when they have dicey running games. Mostert's gone. Achane's definitely the lead guy, but Jaylen Wright, just every time I watch him, is like always, my immediate reaction is like he's such a very good scheme fit. The cut and go. He makes decisive decisions, and you're running like a stretch zone, and you pop in a B gap. Like he's the kind of guy who can do that fluidly. I think he's almost certainly going to be the complement to Achane. I think there's a world where he actually has more carries than Achane. We'll see if that comes true, but I could see him getting more goal line work too than Achane. I definitely want to, we'll see where his cost ends up as the offseason progresses, but I'm very interested in him. There's going to be teams where I might even take both of them if it's cost effective.
You and I are seeing this eye to eye. I'm big on Achane, but I'm also very big on Jaylen Wright as, the RB2 complement. 2 years ago, both Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane were top 5 running backs.
Yep.
In the same offense. Offense. And this checks so many of the boxes. This is the Tank Bigsby corollary of busting year 1 and coming back year 2, like decent enough round 4 draft capital. That's not, damning. And we like the offense. And Jaylen Wright is my 3rd most drafted running back right now in Underdog. So you and I are seeing this eye to eye.
I like that. When the man in the machine mold, when it's the film guy and the data guy see things eye to eye, I'd probably listen. Not too much though, because I want to still keep getting cheap shares of them. So don't listen.
Don't listen too much. All right, Ryan, this has been great. We're gonna keep going with this series of must draft players, and then we'll see if we can go with some avoids and get you prepped. As we get closer to the draft, we'll do some rookie prep as well. But not for a little bit. It's only February. We've got some research to do. We've got time for all of it to percolate. The combine still has to happen. There's a lot of pieces to this puzzle for us to dissect and go forward. But as of right now, these are our must draft running backs. Ryan Reynolds at Ryan Reynolds NFL on the X Machine. Bradley Stalder at FF Stalder. Until next time, everyone. Good luck in fantasy football streets.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.